I think the president's words were really striking a chord today with millions of people tonight. I mean, it's a good question. How do you make sense of a tragedy like this happening inside, of all places, a movie theater, a place where you're supposed to just leave all your troubles behind and enjoy the show, right? With me now from Hollywood, psychologist Wendy Walsh, also from Hollywood, Paul Garabedian, who is president of Hollywood.com's box office division. Now, Wendy, how do you, and I don't even know if it's possible to, but how do you at least try to make sense of a tragedy like this happening in a movie theater?
Well, it's impossible to completely make sense of it. In fact, my teenager, who's away at a program at Stanford, texted me immediately this morning about it, and I talked to her about statistical probability. This is the payback, or one of the high risks of living in a high-risk culture. This is the payback to freedom, is that you're going to have the odd person once every 10 years in an isolated random act. There's going to be tragedy. It is chilling. It is terrible, but we should not stop living and keep going. That's the important thing.
That's a very good point, Wendy. Paul, I want to talk to you. You've seen this movie. Now, is there anything in the movie that makes you think that some guy could be inspired somehow? It's weird even saying it, but be inspired to commit such a heinous act.
Yeah, it's so bizarre to even think that way, because clearly you have to be mentally unstable in the first place to allow some sort of media or art to inspire you to commit mass murder. And for me, the movie, obviously, I love the movie, and it's clearly a violent movie. That's part of the Dark Knight mystique, is that it's violent. And the last thing I would want to see is a chilling effect on the creative process, wherein, let's say, filmmakers and studios say, well, we better not put any violence in a movie because then people might act out. And as was said before, this is something that might happen once every 10 years. I don't know of anything else exactly like this ever happening in a movie theater. This, it's a sanctuary where people go to have fun and escape the real world. And here the real world came into the movie theater.
Absolutely. Wendy, so many parents, like the president, like the Obamas, who send their kids to the movies, especially a movie like The Dark Knight Rises. What's the advice to parents who probably are scared themselves after all of this happened?
Of course, and children are sponges, and they will soak up your emotions and your feelings. The important thing is for parents to contain yourselves. Children are not your sounding board. Children need to be overprotected. This is not a time to teach your children to grow up in a fear-based way with their behavior, but it is time to teach them compassion and concern for the families, so that we can think about the mourning and the grieving part, but not the fear part.
Paul, here's the white elephant in the room. Is it unfair to link this shooting to the violence in the Batman series now?
I think it is, because I think if you do that, then you could say, well, if somebody watches the evening news or reads a book that might have a lot of violence in it, that if you start blaming creative works for people's snapping and doing something absolutely crazy, well, then that defeats the whole purpose of being in America and having the freedoms that we have. That's what terrorists do, right? They do something that then changes the way we are able to conduct ourselves in a free society. And I don't want this to do that. I think people should be vigilant, obviously, but to have it scare people away from going to the movie theater, I certainly hope not. I love the movie theater. I love going to movies. And so I do not want to see that happen. But it's so early, and we're still trying to process this whole crazy
we are.
thing.
And there is a lot to process. Wendy, I heard you agree with him there. Both of you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.